Okay, welcome back. Part 2 of the Emmett Till story. So I'm going to continue with the video. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to discuss some of those questions, and let's continue.
I had covered the courts in many areas of this country, but the Till case was unbelievable. I mean, I just didn't get the sense of being in a courtroom. It was, first place, segregated. The black press sat at a bridge table far off from the court, and the boy's mother came down. They sat her there at the bridge table with us. Plus, the United States Congressman, at that time, Diggs, he came down, and I was the one that got him in because the sheriff wouldn't let him in. He said to the deputy that he called over, he said, "This nigger here said there's a nigger outside who says that he's a congressman and he has corresponded with the judge, and the judge had told him to come on down and he would let him in." He said, but the sheriff won't let him in, so he's sending his card up there. So this guy said, "A nigger congressman?" And he said, "That's what this nigga said." So I said, my God, I have never seen anything like this in my life.
There was, of course, a lot of buzzing when I entered the place and was placed in that area. And I think the judge said something about, yeah, have that boy come on up here and sit down over here with these news reporters, you know.
What do you intend to do here today?
To answer any questions that the attorneys might ask me to answer. To the
How
best.
do you think you could possibly be a help to them?
I don't know. I mean, just by answering whatever questions that they ask me.
Do you have any evidence bearing on this case?
I do know that this is my son.
The defense argued that the body found tied to the cotton gin fan in the river was so disfigured that it could not be identified as Emmett Till. The trial took 5 long, hot days. Because of threats to his life, the prosecution's star witness, Mose Wright, was kept hidden out of state.
Will you go back to Mississippi to testify in the kidnap trial?
Sure, I'll go back because I promised the sheriff I'll be back. So if I live, I'm going back to testify. And after the trial, well, I'm through in Mississippi forever and ever. They didn't have my part in Mississippi. I'm through it. I don't want nothing to that.
At the time, I really didn't realize how brave my grandfather Mose Wright was, you know. But after I got older, I realized that he was a brave man. He was a mighty brave man to travel back down there, you know, among all those hostile peoples and testify and get him up in court and point his finger at a white man and accuse him of murder.
He was called upon to testify as to could he see anybody in the courtroom, identify anybody in that courtroom that had come to his house that night and got the Emmett Till out. He stood up, and there was a tension in the courtroom. And he says, in his broken language, "Dahi."
Darhe, there he is. Other black witnesses came forward too. Their courage made no difference in Sumner, Mississippi. As the trial ended, a defense lawyer told the jury he was, quote, "sure every last Anglo-Saxon one of you has the courage to free these men." It took the jury an hour to find the men not guilty.
All right, let's pause here for a second and recap what's been going on, okay? In your groups, talk about it, okay? Take a few minutes to talk about it. What are what do you think about the way the trial went? What are your interactions? What do you think about the interactions? How about when Congressman Diggs comes into the room? That whole dialogue back and forth. Why does that take place? Do you think reporters today would question the mother of a murder victim the way the reporters down there seem to be dealing with Mamie Till? And why or why not? Think about that, okay? Why does Emmett Till talk to the two guys when he gets taken out of the house? Think about that, all right? Take a few minutes, break up into your groups. I'm going to pause the video here, spend a few minutes talking, and then when you're done, restart the tape. Okay, welcome back. Please, we're going to start the rest of the video, and then we'll talk about it when we get to the end.
How do you folks feel now that it's all over? Roy, how about you?
I'm just glad it's over with.
JW?
I am too.
Mrs. Bryant,
Feel fine.
how about you, Mrs. Milam? Did you expect this verdict?
Well, I was hoping for it.
Well, the whole trial was just a farce, but the verdict was the one that I had expected to be given.
Months later, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam told their story of the night of August 28th for $4,000 to reporter William Bradford Huey.
Milam was startled at the belligerent attitude, or the fact that young Till didn't appear to be afraid of him. Now, he'd gone and gotten him out of bed and had him in the back of a truck, and young Till never realized the danger he was in. I'm quite sure that he never thought these two men would kill him. And, or maybe he's just in such a strange environment, he just doesn't know what he's up against. And it seems, to a rational mind today, it seems impossible that they could have killed him. But J.W. Milam looked up at me and said, well, when he told me about this white girl he had, he says, my friend, that's what this war is about down here now. He says, that's what we got to fight to protect. And he says, I just looked at him and I said, boy, you ain't going to never see the sun come up again.
For much of Southern history, lynching had been an ordinary story. Race killings were down by the 1950s, but over the years, there had been more than 500 documented lynchings in Mississippi alone.
And the fact that Emmett Till, a young black man, could be found floating down the river in Mississippi, as indeed many had been done over the years, just set in concrete the determination of people to move forward. And I think we said back there that really only God, only the books in heaven can know how many Negroes have come up missing and dead and killed under the system in which we lived.
In Mississippi, a few black people stood up to the system, but it was not enough. Their challenge was easily beaten back.
Okay, so once again, why does all this happen in Mississippi? What's life like in Mississippi for black Americans at the time? Please try to understand that, okay? What did you guys get out of reading the Look article? How did you feel when you read the Look article? Okay, do you think it was fair that they got away with murdering him? And again, try to put yourselves in the perspective of the people who lived at the time. No, it was not right that they murdered him. We understand that. The question really becomes, what do you think about the process? What do you think it took place? What does this say about America in the 1950s? Spend a few minutes talking amongst yourselves in your groups, and then we're going to move on for a few minutes to talk about the Montgomery bus boycott and Rosa Parks. Okay, welcome back. What I'd like to do now is transition into Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. What do you guys know about Rosa Parks? Think about your earlier history. Think about the stories you were told. And just take a minute amongst yourselves to talk about and write down what you know about Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott. And then we will continue. Okay, so I hope you had a chance to talk about Rosa Parks and discuss what you know. Now, what's the difference between what you know and what you think you're going to know? In other words, what did you get out of the readings for homework that I asked you to read? What was Montgomery like before the boycott gets started? Let's take a look at Montgomery and take a few minutes to see how the story of the Montgomery bus boycott developed.
3 months later in Alabama, when many stood together, the challenge would be strong. It started with a woman named Rosa Parks in Montgomery.
Montgomery in 1955 was a typical southern city. We are called the cradle of the Confederacy. And there is a tradition in Montgomery of having carrying out the old Confederate South type of things, the stars and bars, flags. It was a totally segregated community. Department stores had white water fountains and colored water fountains. We had separate taxis. You had black taxis and you had white taxis.
And Montgomery, like all of the South, had segregated buses. In interstate buses like this one, and in city buses, the whites sat in the front, the blacks in back. If more whites got on, the blacks had to give them the middle and back seats too. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger.
His front seats were occupied, and there one man, a white man, standing. And at this point, the driver asked us to stand up and let him have those seats. And when none of us moved at his first words, he said, "Y'all make it light on yourselves and let me have those seats." And when the policeman approached me, one of them spoke and asked me if the driver had asked me to stand. I said, yes. He said, "Why don't you stand up?" I said, "I don't think I should have to stand up." And I asked him, I said, "Why do you push us around?" He said, "I do not know, but the law is a law and you're under arrest."
Mrs. Parks was formerly my secretary in the NAACP in the local branch for about 12 years. She also worked with me when I was state president of the NAACP. And she also assisted me in the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. And if there ever was a woman who was dedicated to the cause, Rosa Parks was that woman.
This was not the first time a black person had defied the bus segregation in Montgomery. It was not Mrs. Parks' first time. It was her first arrest. E.D. Nixon went to the police station to bail her out.
I said, "Miss Parks," I said, "with your permission, we can break down segregation on the bus with your case." I said, I'm convinced that we can do it. And I said, if I wasn't convinced, I wouldn't bother about it. She asked her mother what she thought about it. She said, "I'll go along with Mr. Nixon." I asked her husband. He said, "I'll support it." So that's fine.
E.D. Nixon and other black leaders called for a one-day bus boycott. In some cities, it would have been impossible to organize 40,000 people in 2 days. But Black Montgomery had a core of activists in the Women's Political Council, and they distributed these boycott notices all over the city.
Okay. Stop and talk to your, stop and talk to your colleagues again. Was Rosa Parks the little tired old seamstress lady that you were told about in the stories when you were younger? What's the deal with E.D. Nixon and Rosa Parks? Also, think about what's significantly different in the community in Montgomery that was not there in the community in Mississippi or Sumner, Mississippi. Okay? Take a few minutes, talk to yourselves. When you're done, you're going to need to switch to part 3 of the tapes.